2,500 years ago, in the foothills of the Himalayas, a king was given a prophecy about his newborn son. The child, he was told, would become one of two things: either a great king, a ruler of the whole region, powerful beyond measure, or he would give all of that up and become a great spiritual teacher, a man who showed others the way out of suffering. The king knew exactly which one he wanted. He wanted a king, and he decided he would simply engineer it. The boy was named Siddhartha Gautama. And his father's plan was, in its way, a kind of terrible love. He reasoned like this: a person only goes looking for the way out of suffering if they have seen suffering, so the boy would never see it, not once. He built his son a life with no cracks in it. 3 palaces, one for each season, walls and gardens inside the walls, and more walls. The servants were young and healthy. Anyone who grew ill was quietly moved out of sight. The old were kept away. When a flower in the garden began to wilt, it was removed before the prince could walk past it. He was given music and beauty and every pleasure a kingdom could supply. He was married to a woman named Yasodhara. They had a son. And Siddhartha grew up, to 29 years old, inside a world that had been carefully edited. He had never seen a sick person. He had never seen someone genuinely old. He had never seen a dead body. He did not know in any real way that those things existed. You already know a life like this cannot hold. A wall keeps things out only until it doesn't. What follows is one of the oldest stories in the world, and the tradition tells it as 4 trips outside the walls, 4 sights. On the first trip, Siddhartha, riding out through the city for once, saw an old man, bent, frail, leaning on a stick, his body worn down by decades. And the prince genuinely did not understand what he was looking at. He had to ask. And his attendant told him the truth, perhaps for the first time anyone had, that this is not a rare misfortune. This happens to everyone. This will happen to you. On the second trip, he saw a sick person, a body in pain, shaking with fever. And again the same answer. This too. Anyone. You. On the third trip, he saw a corpse being carried to the cremation ground, the family walking behind it weeping. And Siddhartha learned the last piece of the thing his father had spent 29 years hiding, that it ends. That every life he had ever been served by, smiled at, walked past, every single one, ends, and his too. Now, stay with this for a moment, because it is easy to hear it as just an old story. Put yourself inside it. Siddhartha was not a foolish man. He was not stupid for not knowing. He had simply been protected completely from the central facts of being alive, and then in 3 short journeys, he was handed all of them at once. Old age, sickness, death, the 3 things that are coming for everyone, with no exception, and that no palace wall has ever stopped. Most of us learn these facts slowly, in small doses, across childhood, and we build up a kind of callus. Siddhartha got them undefended, all at once, as a grown man. It broke his world open. And then there was a 4th sight. This one was different. On the 4th trip, he saw a wandering monk, a man who owned nothing, a robe, a bowl, and who, in the middle of a world full of old age and sickness and death, was calm, not numb, not in denial, calm, awake to all of it, and at peace anyway. And Siddhartha understood what the 4th sight was. It was a question and a possibility. It said, the first 3 things are true and cannot be escaped. But look, here is a human being who has found some way to be free, not free of the facts, but free in the middle of them. That is possible. Someone is doing it. That night, Siddhartha left. The tradition calls it the going forth. He looked once at his sleeping wife and his sleeping son. He did not wake them, and people have argued about that for 25 centuries, whether it was cowardice or whether it was the only way he could go at all. He left the palace and the kingdom and the life that had been built for him with such determined care. He cut off his hair. He put on the rough robe of a wanderer, and he walked out into the world to find what the calm monk had found. He was 29 years old. And here begins the part of the story that gets left out of the soft versions, because Siddhartha did not find it quickly. He looked for 6 years. And for most of those 6 years, he was wrong. He went first to the great meditation teachers of his time, And he was a brilliant student. He reached the highest states they could teach, the deep absorptions, the refined and silent places of the mind. And then he noticed something that took real honesty to admit. He came back. The state would end, and he would come down from it. And the basic problem, old age, sickness, death, the fundamental unsatisfactoriness of things, was all still there, exactly where he'd left it. A beautiful meditative state was a holiday from the problem. It was not a solution. So he tried the other road, the one everyone respected most in that era, extreme asceticism, the punishment of the body. The idea was that the body, with its hungers and its comforts, was the trap. So you starve it, you break its grip, you force your way to freedom. And Siddhartha did this more fiercely than anyone. The texts are genuinely hard to read. He ate so little, a few grains, a single fruit in a day, that the old accounts say when he touched his stomach he could feel his spine. His hair fell out. His skin, they said, became like a withered melon. He took himself to the very edge of dying. And he was, again, honest enough to see the result. He had not found freedom. He had found a starving, exhausted, dying body and a mind too depleted to see clearly at all. 6 years. The deep meditation hadn't done it. The punishment of the body hadn't done it. He had tried the two most respected paths his world offered, all the way to their ends, and neither one had worked. Picture him there, a man who had given up a kingdom, given up his family, given up 6 years and very nearly his life, sitting by a river, starving, with nothing to show for it. And it was there, at the lowest point, that the turn came. A memory surfaced, a small one from childhood. He remembered sitting under a tree as a boy at a quiet festival, his mind settling into a state that was easeful and clear and entirely natural, not forced, not starved into being, just a calm, awake clarity that had arrived on its own. And he asked himself a simple, enormous question. Why am I afraid of that ease? He saw it. The palace had been one extreme, pure indulgence, every comfort, the body endlessly soothed. The forest had been the other extreme, pure punishment, the body destroyed. And both extremes had failed for the same reason. Both of them were obsessed with the body, just in opposite directions. The answer was not in either ditch. It was on the road between them. This is the teaching that would later be called the middle way. And the first thing Siddhartha did with it was almost ordinary. He accepted a meal. A woman named Sujata offered him a bowl of rice and milk, and he ate it, properly, fully, and began slowly to let his body come back to strength. Then he found a tree, a great fig tree, the kind we now call the Bodhi tree. He sat down beneath it in the evening, and he made a quiet, total resolution that he would not get up from that spot until he had understood, until he had seen, all the way down, the thing he had given his whole life to find. What happened that night is told in the old texts with a great deal of mythology around it. Armies of temptation, a demon called Mara, storms and seductions sent to break his resolve. You can take the mythology as poetry, which is what it is. The plain center of it is this. Through that night, Siddhartha sat, and his mind grew very still and very clear, and he looked directly, without the palace walls and without the starvation, with a balanced and steady attention, at the actual nature of things. He saw how suffering is built. He saw how craving, the endless grasping for things to stay, to satisfy, to be permanent, is the engine underneath it. He saw that the engine could be switched off, and he saw the path by which a person could switch it off. And by the time the morning star rose, the man who had been Siddhartha Gautama, the prince, was, in the only sense the word has ever really meant, awake. That is all the word Buddha means. Not a god, not a magician, the awakened one, a human being who had finally, fully woken up. Here is where the story could have ended, and it very nearly did, because the tradition says that the newly awakened Buddha sat for a while with what he had seen, and his first thought was that he could not teach it. It was too subtle, too against the grain of how minds normally work. People were too busy, too caught in their craving, too deep inside the palace walls of their own making. Why speak? Who would listen? And then, and this is the most important decision in the whole story, more important than the awakening itself, he changed his mind. The texts frame it as compassion, simply winning the argument. He looked at the world and thought, there are some with, as the old phrase has it, only a little dust in their eyes. Some who would hear it, some who would be helped. And so he stood up and he walked, for weeks, to find 5 former companions, the men who had starved alongside him in the forest, and he sat down with them and he gave them his first teaching. He told them about suffering and the cause of suffering and the end of suffering and the path. The 4 noble truths, the 8-fold path. If you have watched our earlier teachings, that is the moment you have already been sitting inside. This is the man and this is the night that those teachings came from. And then he did not stop for 45 years. We tend to skip over those 45 years as if the awakening were the end of the story. It was the beginning of the longer one. The Buddha lived to be 80, which means he spent nearly half a century walking the roads of northern India on foot, teaching anyone who would sit down with him. What he built in that time was the Sangha, the community of people who took up the practice. It started as 5 men in a deer park and grew across his lifetime into thousands. And the thing worth noticing is who was in it. Kings came to him and he taught them. But so did farmers and merchants, and the lowest caste laborers and outcasts that the society of the time would not touch. In an age organized entirely by caste, the Buddha's community accepted people on one basis only, that they wanted to practice. A barber and a prince sat in the same robe. He went home too. Some years after his awakening, he walked back to the city he had slipped away from in the night. He saw his father, now old. He saw Yasodhara, the wife he had left sleeping. The tradition tells it without flinching from how hard that meeting must have been. And his young son Rahula came to him, and Rahula in time became a monk under his own father. The family the prince had walked out on was not abandoned forever. It was, in the end, gathered into the practice. His foster mother, Mahapajapati, the woman who had raised him after his own mother died, came to him and asked to be ordained to enter the Sangha as a nun. The Buddha, the texts honestly record, hesitated. The world of that time had no place for such a thing. But she persisted and he agreed, and the order of nuns was founded. It is worth being honest that this part of the story has rough edges in the old accounts. But the door did open, and women entered the practice as full practitioners. These were not always serene decades. The community grew large enough to have conflicts. There was at least one serious attempt to split it. Led by the Buddha's own cousin, he grew old in plain sight of his students. There is a passage where he speaks of his body in his 80s as a worn-out cart, held together with straps and repairs. The first of the 4 sights, old age, came for him exactly as it comes for everyone. He never pretended otherwise. That was rather the point. And then, in his 80th year, the story comes to its quiet end, and the ending is, in its way, the whole teaching one more time. The Buddha was traveling, as he always had, on foot, with his attendant and a group of monks. He was old and visibly failing. He accepted a final meal from a blacksmith named Kunda, and afterward fell gravely ill. He was careful even then that no blame should fall on Kunda. He asked that the man be told his offering was a gift of great merit, not a mistake. He lay down between 2 sal trees on his side, and the texts say the trees flowered out of season and the petals fell over him. The monks around him were grieving, and the Buddha, dying, spent his last energy doing what he had done for 45 years, teaching. He told them not to grieve as if something were going wrong. He reminded them gently of the very first of the 3 marks, that everything which comes together comes apart, that this was anicca, that this was simply the law, arriving for him as it arrives for all things. And then he gave his final instruction. The traditional rendering is short, and it is the cleanest summary of everything he ever taught. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. That was it. No grand revelation held back for the end. Just the truth he had built his whole life on. Things pass, so practice, while you can, hand it over one last time. And then he was gone. Here is what I would carry out of this story. Siddhartha's father was not a villain. He was a man who loved his son and tried to protect him from pain by building a wall. And every one of us does a smaller version of the same thing, for the people we love and for ourselves. We edit, we look away, we keep the wilting flower out of sight. The whole of this story turns on one quiet idea, that the wall does not save you. That the freedom Siddhartha finally found was not on the comfortable side of the wall, and not in the punishing wreckage on the far side of it either. It was in turning around and looking at the thing directly. Old age, sickness, death, all of it. With a steady and balanced mind, and discovering that you can meet it, and not be destroyed by it, and even be at peace. He was born behind a wall, and he died in the open between two trees, telling the people he loved not to be afraid of the very thing his father had hidden from him. He was not a god. That is the part to hold on to. He was a person who saw the same four sights that are waiting eventually for every one of us, and who refused to look away, and sat under a tree until he understood, and then spent the rest of his life making sure the way he found was left where the rest of us could reach it. Thank you for sitting with this. If it was useful, if it gave you even one thing to carry into your week, then subscribing is how the next teaching finds its way back to you. New ones arrive through the week. Until then, be gentle with yourself and with the people around you.